230 million years ago, Earth experienced a mass extinction that everyone has forgotten. No one knows what caused this extinction, and no one knows what exactly happened during that period. All we know is that it wiped out half of the life on Earth, and then placed dinosaurs on the throne of the next era. This was the Carnian Pluvial episode, and the reign that lasted for 2 million years was its most iconic signature. This extinction begins in the Carnian, 234 million years ago. At that time, Earth's continents were tightly joined together into a massive super-continent called Pangaea. At this point, the Permian mass extinction had occurred only a few million years earlier, and life was still recovering. Many ecological niches remained empty, like vacant houses waiting for new life to move in. And it was during this stage that a familiar yet unfamiliar old friend quietly appeared: dinosaurs. Many people think dinosaurs first appeared in the Jurassic, but that's wrong. The very first true dinosaurs appeared during the early Carnian. This is where Dinosaur Evolution began. But the dinosaurs of that time were nothing like the giant beasts we usually imagine. Scientists' understanding of early dinosaurs comes entirely from the Santa Maria Formation in southern Brazil. This site preserves complete early Carnian sediment layers. If you traveled back to this period, you'd see the first iconic dinosaur, Styracosaurus. It was about 2.5 meters long and weighed roughly as much as a medium-sized dog. It belonged to the early theropods, and was also one of the largest dinosaurs of its time. Because of its small size, it couldn't hunt large prey, and could only feed on cynodonts and early synapsids, small to medium-sized vertebrates. As one of the most primitive dinosaurs, both its body structure and lifestyle were full of primitive features. The same formation also contains another key dinosaur, Saturnalia. It was even smaller than Styracosaurus, with sharp teeth and razor-like claws. Walking onto hind legs, it looked exactly like a carnivorous theropod, but it actually belonged to the sauropodomorph lineage, the ancestors of those giant long-necked sauropod dinosaurs that came later. At this point, you might ask, how could a small meat-eating dinosaur become the ancestor of giant herbivores? That's the fascinating part of evolution. Scientists don't determine its classification by appearance, but by skeletal features. The front of its lower jaw curved downward, and its humerus had a well-developed delta pectoral crest, two traits unique to sauropodomorph dinosaurs, making them easy to identify. Besides dinosaurs and their close relatives, Earth during this period also saw many other iconic creatures appear. Archosaurs such as Atosaurs and Phytosaurs were everywhere, covering nearly all major terrestrial archosaur groups of the late Triassic. The earliest pterosaur relatives also appeared. They were the direct ancestors of pterosaurs and already had the basic body plan, but lacked fully developed wing membranes and couldn't fly far or high. They were transitional creatures. Meanwhile, the oceans were changing too, with the earliest marine reptiles appearing, and ammonites evolving rapidly. The future rulers of the seas were still tiny creatures, just when everything seemed to be getting better, and life's recovery was becoming more stable. No one realized a devastating catastrophe was quietly approaching. Around 234 million years ago, during the Middle Carnian, the Rangelia, large igneous province suddenly began erupting on a massive scale. Remember this, super eruptions from large igneous provinces have always been a nightmare for life on Earth. The Permian mass extinction and the Triassic mass extinction were both caused by these supervolcanoes. This time was no exception. The scale of the eruption was beyond imagination, and it didn't erupt once and stop, but continued erupting violently. The total amount of carbon dioxide it released was thousands of times greater than ordinary volcanic eruptions. These gases quickly entered the atmosphere and ocean cycles, directly triggering severe global warming. There was another deadly effect: it greatly accelerated the global water cycle. Simply put, seawater evaporated faster, clouds carried far more moisture, and both rainfall frequency and precipitation doubled. Global warming spiraled completely out of control. An era of extreme rainfall lasting millions of years had begun. The Carnian Pluvial episode officially erupted. Earth entered its longest rainy season. Many people say it rained continuously for 2 million years without stopping. That's a simplified description, not a strict scientific conclusion. After careful calculations, scientists estimate the Carnian Pluvial episode lasted between 1 and 2 million years. During this period, an extremely wet climate dominated. Wet periods lasted far longer than droughts, with countless episodes of torrential rainfall in between. It didn't literally rain every second, but it was terrifying enough. These rains completely reshaped Earth's surface. The inland deserts that once covered much of the planet gradually disappeared. Most regions of the world became covered by dense tropical rainforests and vast swamps and wetlands. peat bogs reappeared across Pangaea. Earth's surface was transformed into a giant water world. The Carnian Pluvial episode is also officially known in science as the Forgotten Extinction. On land, countless animals couldn't adapt to the floods and dramatic vegetation changes and went extinct. Two groups suffered the most. The first were incosaurs. They were herbivorous archosauromorph reptiles that evolved from lizard-sized ancestors into animals, around 2 meters long, with stocky bodies and triangular heads. They had been thriving successfully, but once the pluvial episode arrived, their evolutionary path was cut short. Because the extremely humid climate destroyed the drought-resistant plants they depended on, they couldn't eat or digest the new vegetation. And in the end, all but a few groups went extinct. The remaining survivors disappeared completely after the Carnian ended. The second group was the Dinosaurs. They were the dominant herbivores from the Permian into the Triassic. Their most distinctive feature was a pair of tusks. They survived the Permian extinction and flourished for millions of years. But during the Carnian, they too suffered mass extinction due to vegetation changes. Only a few survived into the late Triassic, before finally disappearing around 210 million years ago, during the Triassic mass extinction. In Earth's history, what's surprising is that although the rain fell on land, marine life suffered far more than land organisms, almost to the point of total devastation. There were two main reasons. First, the enormous amount of fresh water from the extreme rainfall carried huge quantities of sediment from the land into the oceans. These land-derived sediments clogged marine habitats and disrupted the marine carbonate cycle, causing carbonate platforms in the oceans to shrink dramatically. Conodonts, bryozoans, and other organisms that depended on carbonate environments suffered mass extinction. Second, the continuous influx of fresh water over millions of years directly reduced the salinity of surface seawater, throwing ocean salinity completely out of balance. Marine organisms had long since adapted to stable seawater salinity, and sudden changes disrupted their osmotic balance. For the vast majority of marine invertebrates and small vertebrates, this was the fatal blow. The marine ecosystem collapsed completely. Of course, nature has always been both cruel and fair. Where there is destruction, there is also rebirth. For vulnerable species, the Carnian Pluvial episode was a catastrophe, but for highly adaptable organisms, it was a once-in-a-lifetime evolutionary opportunity. The first to benefit were land plants. The extremely humid climate turned deserts into green oases. Ferns, conifers, benedictalians, cycads, and other plants experienced explosive growth and diversification, gradually becoming the dominant plants of the Mesozoic. But the greatest winners of this disaster were undoubtedly the early dinosaurs. Why did dinosaurs win? Because the pluvial episode wiped out the large herbivores and carnivores that once dominated the ecosystem, leaving countless top ecological niches vacant. It was like clearing out an old shopping mall and reopening it for new tenants. Dinosaurs, with their remarkable adaptability, seized this opportunity and rose to prominence. At the beginning of the Carnian, there were only a handful of dinosaur species, rare and insignificant. By the time of the pluvial episode, the number of dinosaur species had grown to nearly 10. After the pluvial episode ended, dinosaurs continued evolving toward larger sizes. Around 228 million years ago, Plesiosaurus officially appeared. It was the largest dinosaur of the Triassic, reaching lengths of up to 12 meters, and weighing between 8 and 10 tons, roughly the weight of an adult African elephant. Although it wasn't enormous compared to the giant sauropods of the Jurassic and Cretaceous, it was undoubtedly a land giant of the Triassic, marking the beginning of the dinosaurs' path toward gigantism. This torrential rainfall, which lasted nearly 2 million years,